Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Obviously, I'm all for being paid for your work, be it services you provided or you created some goods and you provide as a manufactured good. I'm all for it. But it does not mean that sometimes you could be noble. In this case, I personally do not know how much would be to, let's say, invite someone to be interviewed. I don't know if Putin was paid money by Tucker's team to conduct an interview with Vladimir Putin. I have no idea personally. I don't think Putin needs the money, but it's not me who determines what people need or not. But if I were Putin, I would not ask for any money. Why? I mean, really? That's beneath me. First, I'm a president. That's all I need. I have the recognition. I'm a bad guy. I'm all this and I'm all that. And these guys tell me that I also have billions of dollars in goods and cash. So I wouldn't ask. I'm not a poor person. Let's put it this way. But it doesn't mean that for his services he could not have demanded any money, even though I think that is actually a contract, because I give you the opportunity to send your message, so I actually popularize you or promote you in a certain way. On the other hand, I also get recognition because I interviewed you. Now let's get from the adults, let's get to children, to infantile. And those are, or is, Boris Johnson, the former Prime Minister of, unfortunately, Great Britain. Unfortunately for both of them. Boris Johnson should not have been a Prime Minister of any country. And unfortunately, it was the Prime Minister of Great Britain, which used to be great, but it's going down. I say that because I hope you guys do something and you come back to your greatness. But I guess your society, your traditions, your values are very much diluted by people like Johnson. And the example is Johnson and Liz Truss and Sunak and Cameron and that criminal, I would say, Sir, what's his name? Tony Blair. Why is he criminal? Well, he invaded the countries on a lie. And nevertheless, and that's a crime. Sometimes we make mistakes, and we have to pay for our mistakes. He didn't pay with anything, so I don't think that's fair. What do we have here? We have Tucker Carson claiming that Boris Johnson, that guy, and I'm going to show you this guy right here, demanded $1 million, whatever, to be interviewed by Tucker Carson. So let's see. Here is the article coming from The Wrap. It is from today, February 20th, 2024. Tucker Carson says Boris Johnson demanded $1 million for an interview about Ukraine. And I'm quoting, "Whole thing is a shakedown." Now, what do you think, my friends? Tucker Carson said Tuesday that former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, a staunch supporter of Ukraine defense against Russian invasion, agreed to an interview with a former Fox News host about it for the price of $1 million. Carson gave his first interview following his trip to Russia and controversial interview with Vladimir Putin to Glenn Beck and on Blaze TV, denying that he supports the authoritarian regime. All right, so I'm moving out of that garbage. And here is this. Let's play and see what Tucker says.
So I'm over in Moscow. I'm waiting to do this interview. It gets out that we're doing it. And I'm immediately denounced by this guy called Boris Johnson, who was for a short time the Prime Minister of Great Britain. And Boris Johnson calls me a tool of the Kremlin or something. And I'm thinking, well, his name's not actually Boris, as I'm sure you know. His name is Alex Johnson. He called himself Boris in high school. So the guy who calls himself Boris is accusing me? So I was annoyed. So I put in a request for an interview with Boris Johnson, as I have many times, because he's constantly denouncing me as a tool of the Kremlin. He says no. So I'm thinking about getting more notes. So I know a lot of people who know Boris Johnson. So I reach out to them. Finally, one of his advisors gets back to me and says, he will talk to you, but it's going to cost you $1 million. He wants $1 million in US dollars, gold or Bitcoin. No,
gold.
And I'm like, he wants $1 million. Yeah. And then he will talk to you about Ukraine. He will explain his position on Ukraine and explain what. So he attacks me without explaining how I'm wrong, of course, or how he's right. This is, by the way, the guy who single-handedly, at the request of the U.S. government, stopped the peace deal in Ukraine a year and a half ago, and is, I think, for that reason, responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. He won't explain any of that to me in an interview until I pay him $1 million. And I said to the guy, I just interviewed Vladimir Putin. I'm not defending Putin, but Putin didn't ask for $1 million. So you're telling me that Boris Johnson is a lot sleazier. A lot.
Did Putin ask for $2 million? Because he said he didn't ask for 1 million. But I don't know how much he asked for. He doesn't say. It could be 3 million. It could be $999,000.
Closer than Vladimir Putin.
Okay.
Which is true.
Yeah.
So this whole thing is a freaking shakedown. Why $60 billion? I mean, I could get boring on this because I've learned a lot about it. But $60 billion is not going to allow Ukraine to prevail over Russia. No honest person thinks that's going to work. This is a money laundering operation. A lot of the people involved in making money from it. And if you're making money off a war, you can deal with God on that, because that's really immoral. Like, that's actually really, really wrong. And a lot of people are, including Boris Johnson.
All right, my friends, what do you think about that? I think that I'm going to use this, my friends, I'm going to use this, and I will always use it. And I know my Polish friends, as many as I have, or I don't, and I lost. I will use this example because it's an example of negotiating in bad faith. And that is, I don't want to give you an interview. Therefore, I'm going to ask for a big sum of money that I know you will not agree. Therefore, you will not interview me. So the same, I'm going to have to bring the Poles here with those guys, bad guys, the Germans. They negotiated, click, in bad faith with the Germans. Instead of saying, no, man, I'm not gonna discuss the Danzig corridor. What are you gonna do about it, huh? Bring it on. No, they didn't do that. Yeah, we're talking. They met numerous times. The Poles and the Germans, the Nazis, whatever, they met many times. And the Poles did not negotiate with the Nazis not because they were Nazis, no, because Great Britain and France guaranteed them through a signed alliance pact that they will militarily intervene if the Germans do something to Poland. So why would Poland need to negotiate anything? No, the problem is they showed up and they just played like that, The same here. This guy probably doesn't want to get interviewed, and if he gets interviewed, probably he's going to give Tucker Carson a list like Putin gave him. You can't ask me this, you can't ask me this. Actually, you know what? You ask me this, you ask me this, and you ask me this. And I have the right to not answer if I don't feel like. So this is, unfortunately, my friends, my British friends, this is the level of democracy. Not your democracy, democracy, mass democracy in general. Sleazy balls like those guys that I mentioned before, including the sleazy squeaky, what's her name, Lazy Lizard Truss, should not be near close a dog catcher job in a village in Montana. And they are prime minister, foreign minister, garbage ministers, and they ask for that. I mean, let me give you a little piece of information. I practiced martial arts for many years. I trained people. I never asked for money. Never. You know why? Because I thought the martial arts, being an art, you should not ask for it. It comes from heart to heart, from soul to soul. If you ask money to make a living out of that, I disagree with, hey, the work must be paid, or services. This is something more. This is supposed to be art. Now, I'm not going to blame the ones who ask for money, but I would not ask money for money if I would like to, train and have a big dojo or something like that. No. I trained for years, and no, I never asked, because it's not that way. And this garbage asks for $1 million. Well, thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.